Sometimes we don't want to overwhelm the user with too much information, and the queue expansion item allows us to just show some headings, but then when the user wants more information, they can click on those items to get a little bit more extra information. So let's go ahead and dive into this component. Quasar new page components / queue expansion item page. So we'll create that, dive into it. There it is there, and we can go ahead and get started. We'll start with a basic example. Let's imagine that we have a list, and that's going to be bordered. And then, of course, we're then going to want some list items. So queue-item, and then inside there, a queue-item section. And I'm just going to create a heading here for this list, queue-item-label. And to make it a heading type label, we can add header in there. And this is going to be an FAQ. So FAQ, a perfect example of where we might use the expansion item component. Now, also within this list, we're going to have the queue expansion items themselves. So queue-expansion-item, and then we'll throw a card in there for the actual content. Queue-card, bit of markup here, queue-card-section, so a section inside the card so we get some nice padding, and we'll just whack inside there some lorem ipsum. And if I come over here, I can then say label is equal to, how about, can I get a refund? You often have these refund sections in the FAQs. And there we go, and we can click on that, and we have our first queue expansion item. Not bad. Now for an item like this, you're probably going to want to model some data. So let's come down here and create a data section. Return an object, and we'll put some questions in there, and that's going to be an array of objects. And the first question will be label, can I get a refund? Question mark. So that's going to be the label. We'll also want to give this an icon, and I'll set them all to the same icon, I think, which will just be the help icon. What else? We'll have a caption in here. Yes, just so I can show you a little bit more for the example. And we'll also have an answer to the question. Of course, you can just go to your, account settings and click refund. All right, so let's copy paste that down and do a few more of them. I think just one at least to begin with. And the label for this one can be, what is the catch? And the catch can be, we can put great question. And how about this? I get money. You get value. 1, 2, 3. So the catch is I get paid, I guess. Anyway, moving on, let's go ahead and now use that. So we have the queue expansion item, and we can say v-4 question in questions. And the label is going to be, forgot the S there. How about this? Question.label. And we're also going to need a key. And the key can be equal to the question.question. Because that's always going to be unique. It wouldn't make sense to have the same question twice. Open the console to make sure there's no errors, and let's see how this works. Cool, that's working. And let's replace this with the answer. So how about question.answer? All right, that seems to be working well. We can also add a caption here. So caption, and that's why I added in caption to the question object. And we get that little caption underneath just to give them an idea of what the answer might be before they expand on it. And I think that's a pretty good starting point. We can start playing around now with all of this. All right, so we can add in here expand-separator. This is really handy because it means when we expand it, it just creates a little bit of a box around the outside there. So check this out. If I remove that, notice how this is all boxed. If I remove this, expand it again, we don't get that box. And it just kind of feels a little bit clumsy. So let's add that back in. Yeah, it makes it a lot nicer. We've also got switch toggle side. And what that's going to do is change where this little toggle icon appears. So let's just change that back. by default, it's going to appear on the right. What else do we have? We can set an icon, and we actually set that already on the question object. So let's set that to question.icon, and there we go. That gives us just a little help icon there. We can set a caption as well. We already set a caption, so you know about that one. We also have a header-class, so you can change the classes of this header here. And let's set that to background-blue 1, so just like a really gentle blue. All right, I think that looks kind of nice. What else can we do? We can disable it by simply adding disable, and now it's not clickable. We can also set a duration for the animation. So let's make it 3,000 milliseconds, which is going to be 3 seconds. And now it will be painfully slow. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, so we can do that, change the speed of that. It could look really good if you had it super fast. So on some website, especially if your website is used a lot, you might want that really snappy feeling to it, so you can speed that up if you like. We can also say default opened, and that means it's going to be opened by default. So let's refresh the page there, and notice that by default, they are actually going to be opened. But just note that when you're using v-model, v-model is going to be preferred over default opened, okay? So this will override whatever is set here. All right, so we've got that. We also have group, and that's how we create an accordion expansion item. So I'll show you what that looks like. Let's just call this group A. And that means anything in group A, there can only be one of them open at the same time. So these are both in group A. So if I click on that one and then this one, it's going to close the other one and make sure only one is opened at once. However, let's just copy all of this and paste it down again. But we'll call this second one here group B. And that means that we've got a group here of these two on the bottom, but then this is its own group. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, just play around with them, and I think you'll pick it up pretty quickly. So let's get rid of that. Move back to what we had before. Get rid of that. We can also say pop-up. So check this out. I really like this feeling to it. Now if I click on it, it just kind of expands out. However, notice that means that it sort of adds this weird sort of border on the outside so that it has room to expand out to. So in that case, you might want to remove bordered there. Yeah, it just makes it look a little bit nicer. So that's kind of cool. Let's bring that back to how it was. Get rid of expand out. Get rid of the pop-up. And now we can say expand-icon. So that's going to change the icon for this expander. So how about the settings icon? Yeah, that's kind of cool. Look at that. It's already doing a little bit of a spin for us because it goes onto its side automatically. So you've got the expand icon. You can also say expand icon class. So we can add, for example, text-primary, and that's going to change it to the primary text color. So we've got that available to us. What else can we do? Expanded-icon. So when it's actually expanded, you could have a different icon, for example, arrow left. So when it's expanded, you now get that left arrow. However, I really like that spinning gear, so I'm going to get rid of that. This is cool. I might actually use it. And then it's also worth knowing that whether or not this is toggled can be modeled. So we can say v-model is equal to question dot how about opened. And now we can add that to questions. If I come down here, and we say opened, and we set them both to false by default. And there we go. And now behind the scenes, that's setting it to opened. And I might as well go ahead and prove that to you. So let's come over here, put in a pre-tag, and whack in those questions. So notice that opened is false, and now it's actually being changed behind the scenes there. Cool. What else can we do? We could also make it dense. So we can put the word dense in there, and it's going to make it a little bit skinnier, a little bit denser for us. And then you can also change the icon to a dense icon. So in order to show this, I'll have to get rid of my pretty gear, which is a little bit sad. Back to what we had before. And notice what that icon is. If we say dense-icon, is it icon? It's probably toggle. Yeah, there we go. Then it's going to change it to something that just suits a dense list item a little bit better. So we've got dense and dense toggle. What else can we do? How about we have a look at how we might do dark mode? So I'm going to get rid of this header class just to bring us back to something a bit more normal. Okay, so let's go to the list here, and we could say dark on there. So we're going to make the list dark. And because of that, everything's gone white because it expects everything else to be dark. So that's why nothing is showing up at all now. So let's go into the page itself. And how about we say class is equal to a really dark gray, background gray 10, which is practically black. And now we can see it, and it gives us this really nice dark theme. However, notice that the card is not going to work anymore. So we have to deal with that. Where's this card? Yeah. So we can add a class in here that is background gray, maybe 9, so also a really dark gray. Cool, that looks really good. And then maybe we could say whatever is selected changes color. It's like something like purple. So how about this? We're already modeling selected, so let's go ahead and use it. Header class is equal to, how about we make this an object, and then we say text dash purple. And how do we decide whether or not the text will be purple? Well, we can grab that question and see if it is selected. Let's see if that works for us. Oh, it didn't. Oh, sorry, it's not selected. It's opened. Question.opened. So let's try again. Ah, there we go. That's actually not bad. I'd probably go for like a darker purple. Maybe like 9. Okay, not darker. Maybe I meant lighter. Anyway, you could sort of play around with this. Yeah, I actually think that looks really nice with a dark theme. All right, so moving on. We can also take complete control over this header section here via a slot. So if I come in here and say template, and that's going to go into the header slot, we can now take control. And one thing I've seen is where they'll have like stars here to show how good an answer is. So maybe you could have something like that in the FAQ where people can vote how good the answers are. Let's have a look at what that might look like. So items section, I might add an avatar in here. So basically we have to rebuild all of this again. So let's put in an avatar. Quickly scaffold this out. And how about the icon is equal to help? That might be a good start. Yeah, so we've managed to put the help icon back in. We can say q-item-section, and this is where we'll put in the question.label. Okay, so we've put that back in. And now on the side, so around here is where we'll have the actual ratings. So q-item-section, and we want this to be a side section. So you have to add side here to make sure that it goes over to the side and it sets the styling correctly. And how about this? On the question itself, we can have the rating in there, which will be a number from 1 to 5. So rating, and we'll set them to, how about 3 and 5. So let's come up here, and basically we want to show some icons based on that value. So how might we do that? What about q-icon? And we're going to have to say v-4 I in, and what we can do is say array, pass in the question.rating, and that means this is going to iterate question.rating times. So it's going to iterate either 3 or 5 times depending on that value there. So that's a cool little trick. And now we can set the key equal to I, and we can set the name equal to star because this is going to be a star icon. There we go. So that works, but obviously we don't want them to be vertical like that. So we can just wrap it in a div. And there we go. So now people can rate these questions, and we could pull that from the database and show it in the UI, which is pretty cool. And we've also got some events available to us. So let's go through those. Now, if I come down here, I like to have, when I'm testing events, a logger. And I'll show you what I mean. Something that just allows me to really easily get feedback. Logger, and that's going to take in all of the params, and then it's going to log all of those params. This is a really cool trick, by the way. Nice one to know. Oh, I didn't spell that right. Params. There we go. So now let's come up here and play around with some of the events that we have available to us. We can say at input. So when the underlying data, so whether or not it's toggled on or off, we can grab that and say logger. And there we go, set to true, and then set to false. So we can tap into that if we need to. We can also say show. So if I open that now, it's going to give me the show click event. And then of course, we also have hide. And there we go, that works as well. And what we could do, for example, is we could say show, and when it shows, question.scene is equal to true. So we put scene on the question, and by default, that will be false. Okay, so by default, they have not seen the question. And then when they open it, it's set to true. So let's come back up here. Yeah, question.scene is set to true. And then what we could do is we could change the class to let them know whether or not it's been seen or not. So I reckon that'd be pretty cool. Background dash, I don't know, gray 9. Question.scene. So if the question has been seen, set the background to gray 9. Let's test that and see if it works. Open it and close it, and now it's been seen. And it's reflected in the background color. How cool is that? Quasar makes this so ridiculously simple. Now, another thing you might want to do is play around with insets. So for example, you might want to make the content in here inset a little bit. And I'll show you what that looks like. But first, let's get rid of this template just to simplify things a little bit. There we go. And now we can put on the expansion item header-inset level, and let's set that to 1. And what that's going to do is change the inset of the header, but not the content. So notice no inset is applied to the content, but it has been applied to the header. You can also say content inset level, and that will only apply to the content and not the header. Okay, so we've got content inset and header inset, which is good to know, especially when you start nesting things. You want to play around with different content insets and header insets. I'll give you a quick example of that. So let me just cut that and say q-expansion-item, and maybe the label of this is set to more. And there we go. So that's showing up. And now let's go ahead and paste it back into here. And then we can say more. So then you can have sort of subsections. And then maybe within more, this would be a content inset. So we can grab this content inset. Where is it? Here. And there we go. And so you can kind of play around with those parameters to get them how you like them. Content inset and header inset. Going back to normal, so I'll get rid of that. And I'll get rid of that. Another thing we can do is make it so that only this icon will expand the expander. And to do that, we say expand icon toggle. So save that. I can click over here all I like and nothing's going to change. I have to click directly on this icon in order for it to open. Okay, so the reason that can be really good to know is maybe you want the item to be a link, but the icon to expand to give you a little bit more information about what is actually within that link. So to actually link this now, we can just say to is equal to slash, for example, to take us home. And if I click in there, it takes us home. And if I click on this, it opens the expander. All right, so you get a little bit of extra control there if you need it. And by the way, all of the sort of router related stuff is available to you. So like active, replace, active class, exact active class, all of that sort of router related stuff. It kind of goes beyond the scope of this video though. So check out View Router if you want to know all of that magic that you have available to you. Okay, what else can we do? Get rid of that. We also have 3 events to us: show, hide, and toggle. It's pretty obvious what they do, but I want to show you them in action anyway. So let's go ahead and create a ref here. Ref is equal to question.name, and let's give all of them a unique name. Name, and the first one will be 1, and the second one will be 2. Save that, come up here. Now, one thing to note here, you might not know this, but if you set a reference whilst you're in a v for loop, then the items inside of that reference will be inside of an array. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. What's a good way to show this? How about a button that shows the references that we have available to us? So q-button, and then at click, and I think we still have that logger, and we can just pass through the refs. So if I click on this button that I added in here, you can't even see it. Let me just give it a label. Label equals refs. And there we go. You still can't really see it. Now we open that up now. Notice that 1 is actually set to an array, whereas usually the ref would be this component itself. So that's what happens when you set a ref within a v-for loop the way that we did there. Okay, so that's really good to know. Otherwise, it might sort of catch you. And now let's generate buttons. In fact, I'm going to get rid of this whole dark theme thing that I've got going on here. Let's lighten things up a little bit. Cool, that looks good. And I'll get rid of this expand toggle thing. All right, so now let's create buttons for each of these by saying v-for equals question in questions. And now what we can do is set the label equal to the name of that. So question.name, maybe just throw this down there. There we go, so 1 and 2. And let's make it so that when you click on 1, it fires one of the events here for that particular reference. So now, oh, it's squawking at me because it wants a key. Key is equal to question.name. All right, there we go. And when you click on this, we're going to say refs to dive into our references, question.name. So now we have an array, and we're just going to grab the first thing off of that array, and then we can say .show and call that function. So let's go ahead and try that. And it works. We still have that weird styling. But notice that clicking it again doesn't hide it because this is just a show method. Works for 2 as well. Let's make it hide. Pretty obvious stuff. That will hide it, but it will not show it. But then you have toggle. So we can toggle it on and off. And there we go. That's everything that we have available to us through the Q expansion item. Have a play with this. I think you'll find it really useful, especially for stuff like FAQs or a lot of like nested data. And I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. See you in the next one.